Hi, and welcome to our panel, Non-Traditional Colleges for Non-Traditional Students. I am Laura Kazan, and I am here with Becca Stewart-Orlowski, and this is our second panel. We're really excited about this one. We're getting a little better at it, so hopefully you will enjoy it. If you like these panels, look down below, right there. There's a link, and you can sign up for future panels as well. We have more good ones coming. So enjoy the panel, and I hope you like it. I want to introduce sort of why I'm doing this panel. I'm here with Becca Stewart, and she and I have started this whole panel series because we just think it's fun and helpful, but mostly fun. We have started to go ahead and do it by theme, and so this is a theme that I chose to do first, and there was a reason for it, and so let me just do a little bit of history, and then we will get started. So I chose non-traditional colleges because I went to a conference a few years back, and I stepped into a session on self-directed learning, and I was completely blown away. I had started to see this concept a lot in the homeschool community, this concept of if you let your children learn, or if you are the kids here in this presentation, if you are allowed to learn, if you are allowed to direct yourself, it was so much more successful. And I was completely blown away because there were colleges that kept this mindset. And I had only been seeing things like UC's, University of California, where everything was sort of directed in a specific way. And I was shocked. So I was so intrigued that I continued to harass the person who made the actual presentation, made an appointment, learned more, and I had started to find every college I can that kind of fit this mold. So that, by the way, the session was from Eric Peterson, who is here he is here with Evergreen. So we'll hear from him in a little bit, but Eric, I don't know that if you know that little presentation that you did several years back has already changed the direction of a whole handful of students, because I was able to pass on this information that college is available and there are places for students like our kids. And I'm just really glad I attended that conference. So my goal today with this panel is to hopefully introduce more colleges so that more students realize that there may be places that are different, that are interesting, and might really fit them. And so I hope that this college presentation does that for many students. I noticed that there was a, okay, and the co-presenter was from Bennington. Eric is reminding me to give credit where credit is due, but he's not here. So Bennington and Evergreen together, we're doing the presentation. And I'm gonna ignore the chat box from this point forward. So so you threw me off, Eric, now I'm confused. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. We're going in this order. For that, the person who asked, yes, this will be put onto YouTube later, so you can see it, you can send people to it, and we will get started. So this is the order of the colleges. Prescott will go first, and I will be controlling the PowerPoint. So when you're ready to switch to the next slide, just let me know and I will hit the arrow button. In the meantime, Becca will control the group chat, and so I will probably not be reading that. So let Becca know if there are any issues. And here we go. It's all yours, David.
All right, good morning, everybody. Trusting the video and the audio work. Welcome to Prescott College. It's a beautiful day in northern Arizona. One of the important things to know about Prescott College is our location, because people hear Arizona and they think, oh my gosh, Phoenix, Tucson. We're 2 hours from Phoenix, more importantly, 4,000 feet higher in elevation. So when you hear in the news it's 110 in Phoenix, it might be 85 or 90 where we are. 2 hours from the Grand Canyon, an hour and a half from Flagstaff, an hour from Sedona. A great place to be in northern Arizona. And you can move to the next slide. Prescott was created in the 1960s, and the congregational minister who helped get Prescott started felt like there should be a liberal arts college in the little town of Prescott, Arizona. And the Congregational Church has started a number of well-known colleges back east, and his vision was that Prescott College would become the Harvard of the West, which I guess makes Harvard the Prescott College of the East, although I don't think they put that on their letterhead. Prescott was founded from the beginning to offer an experiential education, an education where students learn in the field, not sitting in classrooms exclusively, not through lectures. And as Laura indicated, Prescott College has always been a school with self-direction at the core, that students had the ability to create a degree program based on where they wanted to go, what they wanted to accomplish. Not a school where you come in and we tell you what courses to take to get a certain degree. And we can go to the next slide. Prescott's mission is to create change makers, in a word. In fact, we call our merit scholarship the Change Makers Scholarship. We want to bring in people who first want to change their own lives through their education, and who then want to change the world, make a difference in their community, the school they work in, their region, their country, or the world. And so that experiential self-direction has always been a core part of helping people understand, how do you accomplish things? How do you create change? And our students are motivated to go out and make a living while they make a difference in their career. And the next slide. Prescott offers undergraduate, graduate, and doctoral programs. One of the struggles here in Arizona anyway is people hear college and they think two-year school. Prescott is a university. But if we called ourselves Prescott University, then our initials would be PU, and nobody wants that. All of our undergraduate programs have a graduate program that a student can transition into. We'll talk a little bit later about our accelerated tuition-free master's program. And the doctoral program is the first PhD in the country in sustainability education. Next. So these are our 8 main areas of study. But again, being a self-directed school, students are able to create a degree plan either within one of these areas or by combining coursework from multiple areas. And sometimes that's where some of the most interesting learning takes place. One of our former professors said that think of these areas of study as campfires, and where the really interesting learning takes place is where the light from one fire intersects the light from another, whether that's an adventure education student who also takes courses in psychology and creates a major in wilderness therapy, or an environmental studies student combining that with the arts and letters and creating a pathway in scientific illustration. All those things are possible at Prescott College. And when you come to Prescott, your faculty will not say, okay, you want to major in environmental studies? Take these 10 courses and you're done. The conversation will be more about, well, where do you want to go with this degree? What do you want to accomplish? What kind of a career do you want to have? What kind of graduate school do you want to go to? What kind of impact do you want to have on the world? And then the faculty will help you select the courses, the field experiences, potentially internships or independent studies to get you to that very place that you identified. And again, all this learning, most of this learning takes place in the field. And it's easy to understand how adventure educators would be in the field. You can't learn to be a river rafting guide sitting in a classroom. It's easy to understand how the environmental studies students would be in the field, but all of our students are in the field getting hands-on experience early in their educational career. Education students are in schools way before they ever student teach. So they don't get to the second semester of their senior year and go, whoops, this is not what I thought it was. We can go ahead. Some of the things that are special about Prescott College, I think all the schools you're going to hear from today are going to talk about small class sizes. Our classes are very small, average 7 or 8. We have more vans than classrooms. So you'll never have a class of more than 15 because you can only get 15 people in a van. There are about 450 students on campus here in Prescott, and about that many more earning bachelor's, master's, and PhDs in our online programs for those areas of study. We do an intensive orientation program. I think we're going to loop back to this in a minute. It's 21 days. It's a 4-credit class. For many students, it's a wilderness experience, but for students who cannot or who choose not to backpack, there are options in the community. And we're a school that sees benefit in both semester-long classes and block classes. So every term, there's a 4-week block where you take 1 course intensively, and then an 11-week semester where you take 3 courses simultaneously. And that repeats every term. And many of those block classes, your first one will be orientation. but many of those block classes involve travel to different parts of the world. I think we're going to come to that in a minute, to dive deeply into one area for that 4-week period of time. And we can go ahead. The orientation program, you know, there was an article recently in the New York Times, which I like saying because it makes me feel smart, that said the biggest problem new students have when they go away to college is that they're lonely. They don't know anybody. Everybody they do know is on their phone. So they're talking to mom or they're chatting through Facebook with their friends back at home. And one of the best ways to overcome that is through extended orientation. Nobody does extended orientation like Prescott College. Like I said, for most students, it's an 18-day backpacking trip. They learn about the approach to Prescott College. They learn about get to know a small group of people really well. They have an opportunity to learn about the desert Southwest if they're not from here, and we get students from all over the world. And most importantly, I think whether they do the wilderness orientation or the community orientation, they learn a lot about themselves and what they're capable of, what limitations maybe they've always put upon themselves that they can find, they can overcome in that small supportive group environment. So everything students do in the orientation, they build on throughout their college career. And one of our deans is fond of saying, you know, students are going to build community. The question is, do they build it at the bar on Saturday night, or do we build it in a more intentional way? And at Prescott College, we've opted to do that in a very much an intentional way. Can we go on? Here's a list of some of the classes that take place at Prescott College. Obviously, a very small list. Again, our students are in the field, or if they're in a classroom, they're in a classroom setting where they're sitting in a circle with their faculty, getting a lot of feedback and a lot of support. Faculty are going to know their students. It's not uncommon if a class has a field trip for the faculty member to go take the van and pick up somebody who didn't show up for class. It's not unusual at all. Students at Prescott College tend to be evaluated on projects and presentations and papers, not on fill in the bubble tests. And at Prescott College, we offer every student narrative evaluations on their progress. They can also receive a letter grade, but everybody gets a narrative evaluation where both the student and the faculty rate the student on their progress in the course. Yeah, we can go ahead. Prescott has several field stations of our own, one in Keno Bay, Mexico. So you can go to Prescott College in Arizona and get a degree in marine biology, because you can spend multiple semesters at our field station on the Gulf of California in Mexico. We also have courses down there in Spanish and cultural immersion. We have a field station in Kenya on the Masai Mara, the game reserve there, where students can go to learn about that culture and work with the local community on issues of concern to them. We have an exchange agreement with Telemark University in Norway at the University of Southeast Norway, where a student can spend a semester there and have that be a part of their Prescott College education. And the next slide. We're also a part of two consortia of colleges from around the country, some of whom are represented here, Evergreen and College of the Atlantic. And through the Eco League, or CL, the Consortium for Innovative Environments and Learning, a student can spend a semester at one of those other schools as part of their Prescott College career and have that just be a part of their degree plan. They don't have to transfer, they don't have to pay anything extra, and they can either broaden their education by exploring a topic that they've studied at Prescott College in a different environment, or they can deepen their education by taking coursework that Prescott College doesn't offer, that another college might have available to a Prescott College student. And we can go on. So I mentioned we name our scholarship the Changemaker Scholarship. The maximum merit scholarship is $16,000 per year, renewable for each year of full-time enrollment. That knocks about half your tuition off right there. We also have endowed scholarships from alumni and supporters who have contributed money to support students in particular fields or with specific areas. Our admissions counselors and our financial aid counselors are also really skilled at helping students identify outside scholarships that might support their education work. And then of course, when the student completes the FAFSA, they become eligible for need-based aid, both from the college and from the federal government. So the average student at Prescott College receives gift aid in the area of $20,000 to $25,000 per year. And we can go on. I mentioned the accelerated master's degree. We offer what we think of as an accelerated tuition-free master's program. It's accelerated in the sense that you can begin taking master's level coursework during the senior year of your undergraduate years, and those courses count both to help you complete your undergraduate degree and begin your master's. So you can accelerate it. It's possible to knock off as much as a year of your master's degree in that way. And then it's tuition free because if you're coming to Prescott College as a freshman, 1 year of your graduate study can be tuition free. If you come in as a transfer, 1 semester of your graduate study can be tuition free. So in theory, you could complete a bachelor's and a master's in 5 years instead of 4 and not pay for year 5. And the next slide. New students live on campus. New students are required to live on campus. We have amazing residence halls. I didn't live in anything this nice till I was 30 years old. Most students live in our townhomes, which are 3-story townhouses that 8 students share. And the main floor has a full kitchen with 2 stoves and 2 refrigerators, so students can cook for themselves or cook together. The potluck is the most common social activity at Prescott College. And because students can cook, they don't pay for an expensive meal plan in our cafeteria. Frankly, we don't have a cafeteria, we have a cafe. So students have that opportunity. Students who have a service animal are welcome to bring it. We have an in-depth application for living on campus. So we end up pairing you with students in your room and in your suite that we think you're going to get along with because of your study habits, your attention or lack thereof to cleanliness and things like that. And we found out very recently, free parking is a big draw at Prescott College housing. I skipped over the second bullet, which is important. Our housing is LEED Platinum certified, so very highest level of certification for sustainability in our residence halls, one of only a handful of schools around the country that have a LEED Platinum certified residence hall. And we can go on. We're in a beautiful location. I don't know if you can find us on this map. We're a couple hours north of Phoenix, north and west a little bit. If you want to go skiing, we're less than 2 hours from Snowbowl. We have a great 4-season climate here in Prescott where we will get a little snow, but typically it melts that same day. Spring and fall are amazing here. Summer will trend a little warm for most people, but as they say, it's a dry heat and it's a very comfortable time here. And we go on. As I said, we offer the undergraduate program both on campus and online. The online program tends to be a degree completion program for students who maybe have a year or 2 of college under their belt already, but new students are eligible to do the program online as well. The online program tends to be mentored study. So we help you identify mentors in your community who can support you in an independent study in addition to classes that you take with our faculty here at the Prescott campus. But you can complete the degree in your home community. And we go on. So Prescott has a fairly simple application process. There's no charge to apply. We accept both our own application on our website and the common application. We do not require test scores. We've gone test score optional. And our admissions team are great at helping you through the application process and helping you identify whether or not Prescott College is the right place for you. So I think that's my last slide. I look forward to answering questions and communicating with you after the presentation through the phone number or email on the screen.
And LaShawn, you're on up now.
All right, great. Hello, everyone. So thank you. So I want to talk to you all a little bit about Bennington College. So we are a small liberal arts college based in Bennington, Vermont. We have about 700 students as far as our undergraduate enrollment and about 100 graduate students. The majority of our graduate students are primarily in our Master's in Fine Arts and Writing program. And that's typically a low residency program where students typically take a few classes during spring or fall semester, but they're primarily studying in the summer. And what's a little special about that is typically students in that program are about 10 years into their profession, have had a lot of work experience, and are kind of coming back and trying to fine tune their writing skills as they continue to develop in their graduate program. So we are primarily an undergraduate institution. We can go ahead and move to the next slide. So a thing about Bennington, I love to show this map so students can know where exactly we are in the world. So we are about 45 minutes from Albany, New York, 3.5 hours from New York City, and about 3 hours from Boston. So I like to tell students and families when they're visiting, we're big city adjacent. So if you really are looking for a small remote college feel, but you also want to be able to get to millions of people fairly quickly, you can do that at a place like Bennington. And all of these are within driving distance. And also on this map, there are a lot of other different schools within the Northeast area as well. So if you're ever considering a college visit to the Northeast, you would be able to fit Bennington right into there for a field trip, I should say. One thing I should note though, as far as this Northeast weather, I feel a little bad for some of my colleagues because I'm based here in Los Angeles with this beautiful sunny weather, and the rest of them are kind of dealing with the Northeast weather. So that is something to consider, that you will get all 4 seasons at Bennington if you're not used to that, like I am here in Los Angeles. Let me go ahead to the next slide. So a lot of the things I like to talk about at Bennington, so we've had a rich history. We initially started off as a women's college in 1932, and we transitioned to co-ed in 1969. And so since our inception, we've been known for being really groundbreaking in thinking about how to create a different way of be able to students to learn in a very self-directed way. And a few of the ways we do that are with what we call our plan process. So being that Bennington does not have a traditional major system like most schools. And so what we do have are areas of study, and being in true liberal arts fashion, our idea is to have curriculum be very interdisciplinary. So as students, you may have varying interests. For example, you may be interested in writing, art, and science. And through what we have is called the plan process. So this really is graduate style advising in a way. You have a faculty advisor, but you also have a team of faculty members that meet with you every single year to help you develop your plan and your course of study, to make sure that it's not only rigorous, but it actually aligns with whatever your professional desires are, but also your educational desires in terms of what you want to study. And so the first year when you're developing your plan process and thinking about what classes you want to take is essentially an exploration phase for students. So you can take some art classes, some science classes, whatever your areas of interest may be. And that's really the year for you to kind of dive in and explore and think about what it is you want to make out of your time at Bennington. And through that time, you'll meet with your faculty team to develop a proposal that really tries to streamline what it is that you want to study over the course of your 4 years at Bennington. And after year 1, you'll move into years 2 and 3, where you really dive deep into your coursework. You're taking, the core of your classes to really get an idea of what it is you want to be able to answer. So I like to liken it to when students kind of have like a 4-year-long dissertation in the way. You'll have a research question or an inquiry that relates to your area of study, and you'll spend your time taking the classes to hopefully be able to help you answer that question or that inquiry that you're thinking of. And after your junior year, as you move into your senior year, in addition to your classes, you'll also work on a senior project that's really reflective of you being able to answer that question for you. So if you're a student whose area of studies are going to be visual arts, perhaps you'll write a play or create a monologue, or if you have, performing arts, if you have visual arts, maybe you'll create a sculpture. But if you're more into sciences, you may want to do a long research paper. So the options are endless in terms of what students decide to do for their senior project, but you will have that guidance from your faculty team to be able to help you shape it. And so in addition to the plan process, so we have this open curriculum, but we structure it with the plan process. We also have what's called fieldwork term. And so Bennington is known as being the only college in the country since our inception to require annual internships for students in order to graduate. And there's a very funny story about how the annual internship came about. So it's structured for 7 weeks in the winter. So students essentially go anywhere in the world to really get hands-on experiential learning experience in the field that relates to their areas of study. So if you are a student that's passionate about education and arts, you can go off into the world somewhere for 7 weeks, whether it's paid or unpaid, and find a job opportunity that's going to let you combine all of those experiences to give you an idea of what it's going to be like for you to be able to work in the field after you graduate from Bennington. And we structure that very well with the fieldwork team office we have, in addition to our career development office that meets with every student to make sure that you're able to find an opportunity each year that aligns. And so the way the fieldwork comes about, so in the 30s, you can imagine it was very difficult to heat the dorms at that time at Bennington. And so because they couldn't afford to do it, they actually just told the women that were on campus at the time that, you should just kind of leave for about 7-8 weeks, go do something great in the world, come back and tell us about it. And the women had such a great experience when they came back. The school decided, well, why don't we just keep this going every year? So it went from being we just need to send everyone away because we can't afford to heat the dorms, to let's make this a staple of a student's education experience. And so students go anywhere in the world to be able to have these experiences. We've had students that are passionate about art and education, and they've gone to places like Syria and Somaliland and designed art courses for schools. We have students who are passionate about computer science and have gone to do internships with Google. So the options are endless, and you will have that support from the faculty advisors, the fieldwork team office, and the career development office to help you be able to find these opportunities. And so it's one of the great tools that we use for students, particularly for students who have a non-traditional education experience where you're essentially designing your course of study to really get an idea of what it's like to be able to have kind of tangible opportunities once you're leaving college. And that is a graduation requirement. So all 4 years, students are expected to have these internships or volunteer opportunities that relate to their course of study. But it's not just on the students. There are also opportunities to work with faculty. One of the great things about Bennington is that all of our professors are what we call teacher practitioners. So that means that all of our professors are working in the field that they're actually teaching in. So students also have the opportunity to do research with faculty. So if you're interested in sciences and there's a professor who works in that field that has an opportunity to do research, you could actually spend your field work term in Vermont or wherever the faculty may be helping conduct that research. So there are a lot of opportunities with field work term. And so, it's a very important process because we want to make sure students can leave with as much information and experience as they can once they go off into the world and begin their careers. And so with all that to be said, so those are kind of I would say the three main things that we're really known for. But in addition, I know you all want to hear about some great stuff as far as like student life and housing. And so at Bennington, we don't have traditional dorms. So we have what are called colonial homes for students. We are about 100% residential. So very few students, I would say, actually stay off campus. And so our traditional, our housing style is we have colonial homes where about 30 to 40 students are in a house. You can stay in a house for 1 year or you can stay for all 4 years. And so it's a huge house. You'll have a common area, fireplace, washer and dryer, kitchen. And your house really becomes a central part of your social life at Bennington. And so each house is responsible for monthly events that they'll host. There are always things like, you'll have poetry readings, open mic nights, study nights that happen in your house. And the houses have themes. So there's been a house that has a 70s theme. I wonder if there's going to be a Harry Potter themed house at some point. I would love to experience that myself. But so it's kind of really centered around student interests. And so you'll be matched in a house that really has similar interests as you, as far as your study habits, as far as, are you more of a partier? Do you not really like to party? So it really tries to match around your personality, but also being able to connect with students that have similar, experiences and views as you as well, in terms of how you want to spend your time at Bennington. And so I say all of that to say, it's a very great place if you are looking for a non-traditional education experience where you really want to be able to take control from the very beginning. I think it's a great place to be able to be innovative and creative, but also to really learn a lot about yourself and a lot about others in the world, and think about how you can have this global impact in society. And so I know this is my last slide, so I want to be able to answer some questions that anyone may have at the end. But again, I want to thank you, and I look forward to talking to you. Bye.
And Heather, you're up.
Can everybody hear me all right? And see me all right? So I'll get started. Oh, no, cannot see. Okay, it sounds like some people can see, so I'm going to get started. My name is Heather Albert Knopp. I'm the Dean of Admission at College of the Atlantic in Bar Harbor, Maine. I'm also an alum of the college. I started here as a transfer student, so I have the perspective of both having been a student of the college and also now working in admissions for the last 7 years. So thank you for inviting us to be here. I'm really happy to talk to you about COA, which is a school that is very near and dear to my heart. And I also wanted to mention, since it sounds like most of you are homeschoolers in the audience, that about 5% of COA students come directly to the college from a homeschool setting each year, which is a larger percentage than at most other colleges. And I think as I talk about the college and our educational philosophy and approach, I think you'll understand why we've seen it be a really good fit for a lot of homeschool students. So you can, next slide. Great. So College of the Atlantic was founded in 1969, and our founders envisioned a college with human ecology as the unifying theme. So that's basically they wanted students and faculty to talk about and learn about and study humans' dependence on and responsibility to our environment. So COA became the first higher education institution to focus exclusively on human relationships with each other and with the world around them. So their premise, the premise in starting the college and what still guides us today, is this idea that extreme specialization is not helping the environment and not a great way to tackle complicated problems. So the idea was to really cultivate flexible thinkers who could work across disciplines and from a problem-based perspective to better understand and seek to address the complex problems that are facing our world. One example that I sometimes use is climate change, rather complex problem in the world. And when you kind of narrow it down, climate change is all about excess carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. So that's a chemistry problem. But also it's not just a chemistry problem. It is a problem that is going to require international diplomacy, policy, and law. It's going to require thinking about how people change behaviors, technology and technological systems for renewable energy. So this is the kind of human ecological problem that our college was founded to address. We also really want our students to avoid the temptation to reduce problems into really tidy packages and solutions. We do a lot of experiential learning in the field. And because we recognize, I think our founders also wanted to move away from this sage on the stage kind of academic philosophy that you do all your learning from a professor, a renowned expert professor. They wanted to also emphasize learning in the world and learning from people who are actively working in the world. But at the same time, we have really passionate, engaged, dynamic faculty. And so this is a view of our campus from the water, and you can see that our buildings are a mix of new green construction and also old seaside estates that have been converted into academic buildings. So next slide, please. So we are also an institution that is heavily influenced by where we are in the world. So I think I mentioned that we're right on the shore of the Atlantic Ocean, and we're right across the street from Acadia National Park. So you can actually walk across the street from COA's campus onto a trail, and you are in this amazing resource of the national park with hundreds of miles of trails for hiking, biking, and exploring. We're on an island off the coast of Maine. We're on Mount Desert Island, but we have a bridge to the mainland, so it's not as remote. It is remote, but it's not as remote as it sounds. The island has 10,000 year-round residents, and during the summer and fall, about 3.5 million people visit the island, especially to explore the national park and the surroundings. And you can see some of the granite mountaintops and the lakes and waters and islands in this picture that really make this place so special. So I mentioned that our students use the national park for outdoor recreation, for cross-country skiing, hiking, bicycling, running, but the park is also an incredible laboratory for us as students. So whether you're studying geology or alternative energy or community planning, GIS mapping, any of these things, you'll spend a lot of time engaging with the national park and the communities of Mount Desert Island. Next slide, please. So we are a very small college. We are a college of 350 students, and we are not interested in growing any larger than that. This is the size that we're going to be. So we've intentionally chosen the size of 350 students because it allows us to know each other really well as a community, to be a supportive and collaborative community, and to really extend that collaboration, not just among the students, but between students and faculty. The average class size is 12 students. We have a 9-to-1 student-faculty ratio. Our students also come to COA from all around the world. So 25% of our student body is international. So we're actually, I think, the number 3 college in the country right now for the percentage of students that are international. And they come to us from more than, I guess this fall, we have 54 different countries on campus. So about between 50 and 55 different countries around the world where our students come from. In this fall's incoming class alone, we had students come to COA from Afghanistan, Australia, Benin, Brazil, Canada, Colombia, Costa Rica, Finland, France, Germany, India, Kiribati, Laos, Libya, Pakistan, Mauritius, Mexico, Mozambique, Spain, the United Kingdom, and Uruguay. I like to go through the list just to show you that it's not that we're drawing students from one specific area. It's students coming from all around the world who are really interested in this idea of solving kind of complicated problems using an interdisciplinary approach. Our US students come from 36 states, and I'm often asked what draws students to COA and what makes students a good fit. And our students are clearly coming from a wide range of backgrounds, but I think the thing that really unites them is this shared desire to make a positive difference in the world. And that's really why the college was founded and what we're all about. So next slide, please. So we have one major, but no 2 students have ever taken the same set of classes. So this whole presentation, I've loved hearing from the other colleges because each of us has a really different approach, an alternative approach to education, as Laura described in the beginning, but we all do it in very different ways. So the way COA's educational pedagogy works is that you design your own major in human ecology. And human ecology, it looks like maybe one of the words is missing from the slide there, but human ecology is an interdisciplinary educational philosophy of basically investigating the relationship between humans and our natural, social, and built environments. And you structure your studies based on your interests and the skills you want to develop. So you can do really traditional things here. You can take pre-med classes, you can take pre-law classes, but you can also do really unique things. We don't have set areas for you to study or to opt into. It's really up to you to combine things the way that you want to combine them. And you're encouraged to explore different interdisciplinary pathways. So some examples might be, we have a lot of students right now who are interested in international environmental diplomacy. So pulling those things together. Some students are focused on biomedicine, or you might be interested in conservation of fisheries and the fisheries industry, so working with the fishermen on those issues. There are lots of different ways to approach creating your own major. Next slide, please. So, again, it looks like the formatting is a little weird on the words, but there are 3, we don't have academic departments. We have 3 different resource areas. So those resource areas are arts and design, human studies, which is the humanities and social sciences, and then the sciences, natural sciences. So those resource areas are basically just a way of organizing our classes, because we don't have a lot of requirements. We have one required class, which is the human ecology core course that every student takes in their first year. And then apart from that, we require students to take 2 classes from each of these 3 areas. So you're going to take 2 arts classes, 2 classes in the humanities or social sciences, and 2 science classes, at least during your time at COA. And most students find that they fill those requirements within their first year without even trying to do so, because they're taking interdisciplinary classes and cross-disciplinary classes because their interests lead them across different disciplines. So let's see. Next slide, please. In addition to taking courses from a wide range of areas, you are also going to participate, every student participates in an internship. There's one required internship for graduation. And so it's a 10 to 11 week internship full time, and you can do it either for academic credit or to complete the requirement. But that, like at Bennington, we think it's really important for you to have an experience working out in the field that you think you're going to be pursuing. And we think it's a successful internship if you make a lot of connections and say, yes, I want to pursue this path and I'm really excited about this. And we also think it's a successful internship if you go someplace that you think you want to work and you realize, actually, this is not the field I want to pursue after all, and I think I'm going to take my studies in a different direction. So really the point of the internship is to try out your interests and develop the skills that you will need in the career path. All students also do a term-long senior project, and it's the equivalent, we're on trimesters, and so it's a 10-week, 3-course equivalent project that you design and implement yourself, and is a really wonderful piece to have in your portfolio when you graduate. We also heavily encourage all of our students to take their work off campus. So the majority of our students have an international experience as part of their study. Some of those are in the form of study abroad programs that we offer here on campus. We have a term-long program on Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula, another program in France. Other courses will go abroad or afield for a portion of the term. We also have what are called monster classes, which is a way that you have all 3 courses of your term covering different disciplinary angles on the same subject. So it might be the American West, or it might be food systems, or it might be theater and performance in Spain or something like that. And that will take you the entire term you'll spend off in the field or in a different part of the world learning on those subjects. So we also, to make sure that every student who wants to can have an expeditionary experience or an off-campus experience, we have an expeditionary learning fund that we give to every student. So you get a pot of $1,800. And so if you can't afford the plane tickets to go to the Yucatan, for instance, you have that fund that you can draw down over the course of your time at the college to do 1 or more experiences off campus and in the field. Next slide, please. So I wanted to talk a little more about learning in the field, and that happens in a lot of different ways. I just described some of the internships and the international studies programs, but we also have, we have 2 organic farms owned by the college that are within a short drive of campus. And then we also have 2 offshore island research stations. And so on the top right of the slide is Beach Hill Farm. It's our organic vegetable farm. It's about 80 acres, and it is a working farm that has a CSA, Community Supported Agriculture Program, a retail farm stand, and provides a lot of the food for our dining hall. And it's primarily vegetable production, and students are there as work study for summer jobs, for internships, and also for volunteering and work days and so on, and classes work there as well. The bottom picture is from our Peggy Rockefeller farm, which is our livestock farm, so sheep and cows and a heritage orchard of apple trees and chickens and other animals at the Peggy Rockefeller farm, and the same thing, students are there in many different contexts. And then we have our 2 offshore island research stations. The top image is from Great Duck Island, which is where a lot of our ornithological research projects happen, and students are out there for classes, but then also students live out there every summer conducting research on the nesting bird populations, as well as doing individual research projects. And the bottom is Mount Desert Rock. It is 25 miles off the coast, incredibly remote research station where a lot of our marine mammal research happens. And it's a really remarkable place, and I hope that every student gets to go there at least once, but especially to go there and spend extended time out there. I think people find that the island experiences are pretty transformative experiences there. I just heard a presentation about a student who was out on Mount Desert Rock all summer, this past summer, and was doing work on copepods. And so basically, a lot of the studies on the rock right now are looking at the declining whale populations in the Gulf of Maine because the temperature of the water in this area is rising more rapidly than anywhere else in the world right now. And so she was looking at copepods, which are part of the plankton that whales eat, and looking at how the water temperature is changing the population of that plankton and also changing the body composition, particularly the lipid sac, which is the primary nutrient for whales. Next slide, please. So talk briefly about the student experience from the perspective of food and housing. We have a really amazing dining hall where we source a lot of our food from our farms and also locally and organically. We have vegan and vegetarian options at every meal. We used to be, initially we were exclusively a vegan or vegetarian institution, but have had meat offerings for a lot of years. And now with the really multicultural student population, that's been important to maintain. But it's all the food is made from scratch. We don't have an outside food service provider. It's our staff that are making these meals, and they're pretty phenomenal. And then our housing is on, we have a range of housing options on campus. This photo is of the Catherine Davis Village, which is our newest and greenest residence on campus. But basically all of our housing is set up like houses. Like other people have said, these are not traditional dorms. They are meant to be a house where typically a group of 6 to 8 students lives together with a kitchen and bathrooms and a common living space. The idea is to have a family style experience and to really have close bonding with the people you live with in your house. And our dining hall, I should also add that we've signed on we were the first college this past year to sign on to the Break Free from Plastics pledge. So we're eliminating single-use plastics from campus. And our dining hall had already eliminated single-use plastics, I think, by the time we signed the pledge, except for those tea bags that have the plastic inserts in the middle of them. So we're working on the final pieces of that pledge. Next slide, please. So what do our students do outside of class? First, I think it's important to say we have no organized sports teams, no intercollegiate sports teams. We do have a YMCA in town where every student gets a membership to that YMCA. And so there are a lot of classes and pickup sports and things like that. Soccer is very popular, yoga classes, outdoor recreation, ultimate frisbee. This is water polo, which is wildly popular. And we do have a trail running team as well that's really active. And then the student activities themselves are really wide ranging, from open mics and story slams to our really popular international environmental diplomacy group, which is called Earth in Brackets, the Black Student Union, dancing clubs, role-playing games. Basically, if there isn't a club in something that you want there to be a club in, you make the club, you start it yourself. It's a really student-driven environment. I should also emphasize here that College of the Atlantic is governed in a participatory and democratic way. So every week we have an all-college meeting where faculty, staff, and students come together and make decisions about issues affecting the college. And all the committees that govern the college include student membership as well. So our idea is that we're small enough that we can be a participatory and democratically run institution with a lot of transparency and a lot of back and forth. So if there are things that students want to change about the college, there's a process to do that, and it's encouraged. So next slide. I talked a little bit about our commitment to sustainability. As an institution of human ecology, we have to be thinking and talking about sustainability actively on campus. And so at first we started out, we were the first carbon neutral college, but then a lot of carbon neutrality is done by purchasing carbon offsets. So we decided to aim our sights instead on becoming fossil fuel free as an institution. And we've set the goal of doing that by 2030. We're not there yet. And there are lots of really complicated challenges to getting there, but that's the trajectory we're on. And we also have the goal of becoming a zero waste campus as well. And these efforts are really driven by our students and by the ingenuity and passion of our students. Next slide. So that's it for me. I wanted to close with an image of the coast of Maine. This is what it looks like in Acadia National Park and right along the coast from our campus. So we are looking for 100 new students each fall, more or less 100 students to make up our incoming class. And maybe some of you will be among them. I hope so. I look forward to your questions and to talking more with you. Thank you.
And Summer, you're up.
Wonderful. Hi, everybody. I'd just like to start off by saying that I'm so excited to be here on this panel, and there's a lot of really wonderful options for schools. So you can't go wrong choosing one of these options here. So my name is Summer Harris, and I am currently the United States Admissions Officer at Quest University, Canada. I also am a graduate of Quest, so I graduated in 2016. So a lot of my experience that I'm speaking to is both from the staff side and the student side as well. Next slide, please. So I'll just start out with giving a brief overview about Quest. First, I'll mention that Quest is on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded lands of the Squamish peoples. And we're so grateful to be on that land and to get to educate there. So as far as the curriculum itself, there's 3 things that make us unique. The first is that we are a block plan school, so students only take 1 class at a time. The second is that we have a small community, similar to many of these other schools. We only have 600 students at Quest, so each of our classes is going to be a maximum of 20 students. And then lastly, instead of having majors at Quest, each of our students declares a research question. So that's going to be similarly structured to a master's or a PhD program, and I will get into that later in the presentation. Next slide, please. So Quest is located in Squamish, British Columbia. So we are on the west coast of Canada in BC. We're less than an hour from both Whistler Blackcomb, which is the big ski resort in BC, and less than an hour from Vancouver, which is the big city on the west coast of Canada. For any students who are interested in snow sports, I'll mention that we are close enough to Whistler that students can go skiing in the morning and be back for class in the afternoon. So we get a lot of students who have a passion for being in the snow as well as alternative education. Squamish is also one of the outdoor capitals of Canada. So people come from all over the world for Squamish's mountain biking and climbing, hiking, kiteboarding. It's really a wonderful place if you want to be able to get outside during your education. Next slide, please. So I'll jump into the block plan here. At Quest, we only offer the block plan. So each student is going to take 1 class at a time. Each class is going to be 3.5 weeks long. So you can see in this graphic here that turns into about 4 blocks a year, and 4 blocks a semester, 8 blocks in a year, and about 1 block per month. You can take classes on the semester system if you decide to study abroad, and about 70% of our students do take advantage of that opportunity. So while you're taking classes on campus, those are all going to be under the block plan, but if you study at a partner school, you could do the semester system. So there's a couple benefits of being on the block plan that I'd like to highlight. The first is that as a student, you're only taking 1 class at a time. So you only have 1 set of homework to focus on, only 1 class to really manage all of the outside work for, and then you get to dive as deeply into the material as you'd like. The second benefit is that our professors are only teaching one class at a time, so they're not going to be torn with their attention between different classes of students, or even really between their research and their teaching. When they're teaching, that's the main thing that they're doing, and usually teachers who also have research that they're focusing on will usually do that during the blocks when they're not teaching. So you do, for the most part, get your professor's full attention during the classes. I'll also mention that we can bring in what we call visiting tutors, and those are folks with the highest degree in their field, but who have chosen to work outside of academia instead of as teachers. So they're able to come in and teach for 1 month, and they're in jobs where maybe they wouldn't be able to take an entire semester off to teach, but they can take 1 month or 2 months off to come to campus and teach about their profession. So we've had folks who work full-time in music come in and teach classes. Folks who have worked in places like the World Bank and the UN come in and teach about what that looks like in the professional sphere outside of academia. And then another highlight of the block plan is that we're able to do something called field courses, which is basically a month-long field trip. So you'll travel for an entire 3.5 weeks with your class and your teacher there's a number of different places where we offer field courses. We have one in Peru, we have one on art studies that goes to France. We've had one that goes to the Mediterranean Sea, and students will sail around in a boat while reading some of the ancient classics from that part of the world. We had one this last summer of students who traveled to the southern United States to study the history of music in the United States. And then we have closer ones that go to, say, a marine research station out on Vancouver Island, or ones that'll even stay on campus for the duration of the class, but will be going on daily field trips. So they'll go out in the van, say the geology class, they'll drive out to different rock outcroppings in the area and be studying those every day. Next slide, please. This is a photo of one of our field courses that went to Antarctica, and this course was led by our professor who has a background in ecology and science communication, so that's largely what a lot of the students were studying in the class, but this was one of our favorite field courses that we have to offer. Next slide, please. So I mentioned the study abroad briefly, that many students study abroad and are able to get a experience on the semester system that way. So this map highlights where we have exchange partnerships around the world. Some other ways that students will study abroad are through an independent study. Sometimes those will be taken off campus. Experiential learning. So we require at least 1 month-long internship of our students during their time at Quest. And sometimes students will travel to other countries or other cities for that internship. And then also language credits are common ways for students to travel around the world. Sometimes students will choose to do their internship and language credit at the same time. Maybe they'll travel to a country where they want to learn that language there. Maybe they have a little bit of proficiency already, enough to start working on an internship there and actually take those two classes, the internship and the language, both at the same time. So there's a lot of flexibility with the Quest schedule as far as when you take your credits, where you take them, and kind of how you combine them. Next slide, please. So this is a photo of campus. Our campus is very small. As I mentioned, we only have 600 students. All of our students live on campus, and we actually just this summer completed building 2 more new residence buildings. So where you see the label that says residence buildings and you see the 2 buildings down to the right, there are now actually 4 residence halls there, and that's where the majority of our students live. Within the classroom, I mentioned we only have 20 students in each class. So students who are taking classes together really get to know one another, and there's a strong sense of community inside the classroom. You know, it's very common to see students meeting up for potlucks with their classmates and the professors who are teaching the class. I'm sure as is similar with some of these other colleges that are presenting here today. And then outside of the classroom as well, there's also a strong sense of community. We have over 40 clubs on campus, and those change a lot every year. There are some clubs that are pretty consistent each year, but a lot of them are going to depend on the current students on campus, what they're interested in, how they want to spend their time. So one of our biggest clubs, our biggest and oldest clubs, is called the Adventure Club, and that's a student-run group for facilitating outdoor experiences for the student body. And they're really good at setting up trips that are engaging and fun, both for students who have a lot of outdoor experience. Maybe they've even gone ice climbing and snow camping and all of those things before. And then also for students who have never gone camping before or are new to hiking. So they're really good at setting up experiences that are going to be enjoyable for that whole spectrum of experience. They also usually set up a yearly surfing trip out to Tofino, which is on Vancouver Island on the west coast of BC. Some other clubs that we have on campus are Lego Club, Knitting Club, Tea Drinking Club, Health and Wellness Club. There was a restaurant sampling club for a while where students would go down to town and try the different restaurants in the area. We also have our student body government, which is a great way to get involved in student leadership if that's something that you're interested in. And the student body government is a great resource for student-run initiatives on campus. So they commonly will fund different clubs that have more expensive needs. And then I'll also mention that there's a strong arts culture on campus as well. So we have a couple specifically designated art spaces. We have what we call the Music Bay, which is like a music rehearsal space. We have a recording studio, a dance studio, the Arts Bay, which is a visual arts space. And there's commonly workshops held in all of these different spaces. We also have a yoga studio on campus and a multi-faith room. And all of these spaces are going to be primarily run by students. And then a couple times a year, we do have larger events. So in March, we have what we call the Power, Race, and Privilege Symposium, which was initiated by students to explore dynamics of power in society. And we bring speakers in for that, or the students do, I should say. And then we also have large music events a couple times a year. We have a music festival every spring called Dancing Bear Music Festival that's set up and run by students. So students will bring in bigger name artists down from the city, but then they'll also have student performers up on the stage as well. And then we also have something called Cabaret, which is like a really well-rehearsed talent show. So all of the performance pieces are for the most part going to be written by students and are all performed by students. And then there's a visual arts component to that as well. So there's a lot of fun ways to get involved with arts on campus. All right, next slide, please. So I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation that at Quest, instead of declaring majors, each of our students declares an interdisciplinary research question. I think this slide is a great visual for seeing how a student question can be an overlap in a couple different areas of study. So for example, the question on this slide, what is coherent design, is going to lie at the intersection of mathematics, physical sciences, and arts and humanities. Or I should say, for this student who declared this question, it ended up lying at the intersection of those areas of study. So each student declares their question at the end of their second year after taking a 2-year general liberal arts and sciences curriculum. So those first 2 years, there's a rough requirement of what classes that you're gonna take. And that's mainly to give you an opportunity to really just explore different fields, to get used to learning on the block system, to get connected with the community. And then at the end of that second year, you'll actually take a class called Question, where we support you in identifying your question, identifying which courses you're going to take for those final 2 years. And those courses could be from any mixture of disciplines. You don't have to stick to just 3 or just 2 fields of study. During Question class, you will also connect with a faculty mentor who you'll work closely with for those final 2 years. And you'll also go through a question defense, which is kind of like a thesis defense. So you'll have your question and your question plan and your rationale for why you want to study those things. And then you'll sit with a panel of faculty and they'll try and poke holes in your argument or in your plan to try and strengthen it. And then at the end of that session, they'll make a couple of recommendations for what you can do to really improve the curriculum that you've set up for yourself. So that's how the question works. Next slide, please. So this is the first example of a question that I want to share with you. Tala's question was, how can we better communicate science? She explored this question through media studies, the visual arts, and sociology. Tala is an animator, and after declaring this question and creating several animations, she was accepted for an internship at the New York Times, where she is currently pursuing animation. Next slide, please. So Roz Groenwood was a graduate in 2015, and her question was, how can we understand complexity? She explored this question through looking at physics, neuroscience, and mathematics. And then I'll just also mention, for if there are any athletes out there, that Roz was a full-time Olympic athlete in training. So in the winters, she was training most of the time, and she was still able to balance pursuing that athletic passion with her academic passions. And for those of you out there who have multiple passions, I encourage you to find a way to pursue both of those and to keep exploring them. I'm sure most of the colleges on this panel would have ways to help you, to help support you in maintaining all of your passions as you move through your academic career. Next slide, please. So Ricky Souza graduated in 2016, and his question was, what laws does nature function by? And now you'll notice this slide looks a little different than the previous 2 slides. So I wanted to use this slide to highlight our final project that each of our students do, which we call the Keystone Project. So Ricky's Keystone was the optimization of design and functionality of pellet washer in a pilot carbon capture facility. So he did an internship with a carbon capture company, and then his main deliverable ended up being a scientific research paper. So for our students for all of our students, so all of our students create the final Keystone project, but this can look really different depending on the student. This project is designed to cater to your strengths and interests. So if you're like Ricky and want to go through with this scientific research paper, there's a lot of support for something like that on campus. Many of our students will go through with publishing research papers that they've written in their undergrad. But for students who are interested in doing something else, there's a lot of opportunity. So we had a student who was interested in landscaping and microclimates, and he created a giant microclimate fountain on campus, and then was able to use that as a portfolio piece in the landscaping company that he founded after he graduated from Quest. We also have students who will write plays for their Keystone project or create a documentary. Some of our students who are interested in things like teaching might turn in a smaller deliverable item for their Keystone project, but spend lots of hours in classrooms actually getting that experience. So the Keystone project can look a lot of different ways. Next slide, please. So one of the biggest questions that we get, primarily because we're on the block plan actually, is what do we want students to take away from the classroom? Some people have the question that if you're only in class for a month at a time, how do you retain that sort of information over a year or over 2 years? You know, if I take scientific research methods 1 in 1 year and then want to take the follow-up course the next year, how am I going to remember everything that I learned a year before? And that's where we turn to these transferable skills. So the transferable skills are going to be skills that we want our students to learn in every single class that they're in, regardless of discipline. So our goal in education here is educating students beyond the current discipline that their class is in. So each class, no matter what the subject material is going to require you to do some quantitative and qualitative analysis, to have self-directed learning, to be a really critical thinker, to explore ethical understanding, communication, research, to keep global perspectives in mind as you're doing your assignments, to collaborate with your peers, and then also to solve problems from an interdisciplinary perspective. And these are skills that we think are going to be most important to students as they move out into the world and start exploring real life problems. You know, we live in an age where many careers for young people aren't going to consist of just one type of job anymore. It used to be more that way, maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago, where it was more common for students to go into one career and stay there. But we're starting to see that students are, after they graduate, are not as easily able to predict maybe the jobs that they're going into. As a society, we're facing these really complex problems. So then the question is, how do we prepare students to be able to do well in any job that they move into? And you know, we're also in a time where you can look up facts at the tip of your fingers. Most people have smartphones with them. So then the question is, if we don't teach facts, what are we teaching? And that's where we turn to these transferable skills. And I think that this is something that you would find in many different liberal arts curriculums, but I just wanted to specifically highlight it here because it's so intentionally interwoven into Quest's design. Next slide, please.
Hey, Summer, we're gonna run out of time fairly soon, so we're gonna have to wrap up Quest pretty quickly so we can move to Evergreen before we run out of time for the session.
Okay, perfect, that's fine. So I'll just say that you can access our application online or on the Common App. If you have any questions about financial aid or scholarships, please feel free to send me an email and I'd be happy to chat with you on the phone or sit down over email and answer any questions that you might have. Thanks so much.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Again, this is Eric Pedersen, Chief Enrollment Officer here at the Evergreen State College, and that title means that I supervise admissions, financial aid, and registration here at the college. And when I do these presentations, usually I get to begin with saying something like, buckle your seatbelts. Evergreen is different and distinct from everyone you've just heard from, but in this wonderful a little group of colleges, there's a lot of similarities. As you see on your screen there, Evergreen is located in Olympia, Washington. And if you pull out your phone and Google that, or an old-fashioned paper map, you'll discover that we are partway between Seattle, Washington and Portland, Oregon. Transportation-wise, we're a little bit less than an hour south of the Seattle airport, and an hour and 30 to an hour and 45 minutes north of the airport in Portland, Oregon. We're also partway between the Cascade Mountains and Mount Rainier, which has hundreds and thousands of various recreational opportunities for our students, and about equidistant out to the Washington coast and the beaches on the Washington coast. Southern Californians will find these beaches to be a little bit different if you haven't traveled in this part of the country. They are genuinely Pacific Northwest beaches, but it's a great area for students that either on their own or through the Evergreen outdoor program want to take advantage of the location. Evergreen is a public liberal arts college. So we were created by the Washington State Legislature in 1967, and the charge that the legislature gave to our founders was to create an educational environment that was different as possible, perhaps, from the other 5 four-year baccalaureate colleges in the state of Washington, and talk about our educational model in a moment. The values and the mission that those founders created for us, we still hold true and believe in today. We value the individual and supporting individual students rather than lumping or grouping them together. And part of that expression comes through our use of narrative evaluations rather than letter or numeric grades. Sustainability in the environment has been important to us since the 1970s and remains so today. We have on our campus an operating 50-acre organic farm that is both an operating farm and a classroom for our students, teaching sustainable and organic farming and farm management techniques. Social justice and equity are also key values in our mission that you'll find pervades our curriculum and what we teach here. Our campus is 1,000 acres. It is approximately 700 acres of forest, which remains and will remain undeveloped. The buildings and the farm that compose the athletic fields that compose campus occupies only about 300 acres of that campus. And we view our campus as an outdoor laboratory and classroom for our students. I mentioned that we are a public college. Some people are not aware of that. We're very small. We are only 3,000 students in size, and much, much smaller than most other public universities. We are a member of the Western Undergraduate Exchange, and so for non-residents looking to attend Evergreen, if you meet our WUI criteria, tuition for those students right now is only $10,250 per year for a Western undergraduate student. Regular non-resident tuition is right at about $27,000 right now. So if you are eligible for Western Undergraduate Exchange, it's Evergreen quite affordable. Next slide, please. Okay, so maybe in this group our curriculum isn't so much one of a kind compared to traditionally organized universities, but we do some things very differently than some other places. We use what I will loosely call a block schedule, in that our students take one course per 9-week quarter. So one course per quarter. Now, most everything we do is taught in a multidisciplinary or interconnected, interdisciplinary way. So over the course of that quarter, you will be earning a total of 16 credits. And those 16 credits will provide education in anywhere from maybe 2, but most likely 3 or 4 different subject areas. Good concrete example I can give you is that a program we run from time to time called environmental chemistry. Now, over the course of 9 weeks, you will receive education in chemistry, biology, geology, and hydrology. So you'll earn 4 credits in each one of those areas. Given that we use this kind of schedule, various types of field studies and off-campus work is integrated whenever and wherever possible with our courses. This example I'm giving you in environmental chemistry, they travel to Yellowstone National Park for 3 weeks at this time of year and set up a field laboratory and secure permits to go off the boardwalks and such to do water sampling in those hot sulfur pools. And with the 3 professors there, you will have the chemist teaching the laboratory and the analytical skills and educating you about the chemical properties of that water. And while it may not seem like things are thriving in that environment, the biologist will be there discussing the microorganisms which are thriving in that environment and how that's related. And then most terms, my friend Ken Talbot will be there as a hydrologist and geologist teaching you about why these hot pools exist and integrating all that together on a daily basis. We also practice writing across the curriculum. So even in a program as I just described, you can expect to do a fair amount of writing as well across our curriculum. You'll find that many, and by the way, if you didn't catch it, we call these 16 credit multidisciplinary things programs. So it's a 16 credit integrated program that students are taking. Many are very project and experiential based as well. Typical weekly schedule, you may have a day or 2 or per week where everyone will be together in a lecture format, either with a single faculty member presenting or a team presentation. You might then break up into smaller groups, maybe for lab, writing workshops, writing seminars, book seminar, those sorts of things. We do narrative evaluation. So as I said in the opening slide, we value the individual here at Evergreen. We don't believe in breaking individuals down into single-digit numbers or letters when we assess their learning. At the end of each program, you're going to get a 2 to 4 page written summary of your learning over the course of that quarter. You will probably have participated in writing it as well. Last feature of our educational model at Evergreen is that each student creates their own journey at Evergreen. Put in more common terms, we do not have majors available. All students earn a Bachelor of Arts, or they can elect a Bachelor of Science degree. But what makes up your study over 4 years or 2 years as a transfer student is up to you and the student. Now, our students do not go at this alone. Academic advising is a huge part of this. And as a matter of fact, one of the things that all students do today at Evergreen upon arrival is they will sit down with an academic advisor and write what is called their academic statement. And you can perhaps think of this as designing your major, but you will be asked to write down what is your goal, what is your career goal, what do you want to do after you complete your degree at Evergreen, and then chart your path from that day to graduation when you walk across the stage and receive your degree. It's changeable, so if your ideas, your goals change, get together with your advisor and rework it. You do have to check in regularly throughout your time here and keep that updated. Evergreen was founded to be distinct in its educational model and offer this level of individuality and freedom. But we also recognize students are changing. And so we have just launched something known as academic pathways. And these are a 4-year curriculum plan. They're brand new, and so all of sort of the language and descriptions isn't finished yet. But it's a 4-year path through the Evergreen curriculum in certain areas, such as psychology, environmental science and environmental studies, biology and chemistry, business and entrepreneurship, the visual arts, and 2 or 3 others that are coming to finalization. That's our recognition that, well, we believe in what we do. Students have changed and want to see a clear pathway from beginning to end at Evergreen. Next slide. Admissions and financial aid. So we have our own application, of course, available on our website. We are also members of the Common Application. We are the only public college in the state using the Common Application. We have no preference. Whichever application is the most convenient for you. We are very excited to be moving to test optional admission for fall 2020 students. This took a little bit of work as a public college in this state, but we are the first and for now the only public college or university in the state of Washington that offers test optional admissions. And so if as a student you do not plan to take those exams or you do not feel they are a representation of your academic background and more importantly your passions and interests, you do not need to submit them. And of course, if you have just learned about Evergreen's mission and ethos, it aligns perfectly with the narrative evaluations. FAFSA is required to apply for financial aid, and about 105 to 110 scholarships are available to students. And they're very much out there. And I see the chat box there, yes. And I'm going to thank Laura for helping me get the language perfected on our website. Test optional admission is available for homeschool students. Likewise, if you happen to be in the audience today and are a transfer student, we are test optional for transfer students with low numbers of credits. If you're interested in Evergreen, we will have 2, if not 3, members of the admissions staff traveling throughout Northern and Southern California this week through roughly 1st of November. We are hosting 2 application days where if you are able to attend, you can get some assistance with your Evergreen application and receive a fee waiver. One is in the Bay Area, Emeryville, technically, on the evening of October 28th. The second one is in Santa Monica for our Southern California students on the evening of October 29th. Hit our website or email us. We do need you to RSVP to attend one of those events. And if The $50 application fee is a hardship for your family. Get in touch with us, of course, and we can talk about other routes to a free application. And also over in the chat box, yes, we are doing these application days in Seattle, just north of us, and in Portland in the upcoming days as well. And so I think with that, Laura, I will turn it back over to you for questions.
Thank you, everyone. We actually have run out of time, and so I completely leave it up to the college representatives and the audience on whether you want to stay and ask questions or whether you can stay and answer questions, because we have actually hit 11:37. So it looks like we have Quest able to stay. If anyone wants to answer questions, Becca has gone to bowling league, so we lost Becca. But I will go ahead and stay if people want to, and if you want to sign off, that's fine. Anyone have any questions? Evergreen can stay, Prescott can stay, Quest can stay. Are all these colleges regionally accredited? Oh, hang on. Got one more slide. There's the contact information. Thank you. The question was, are all the colleges regionally accredited? Does anyone want to just jump on and answer that?
I can tell you that Prescott College is regionally accredited.
Evergreen is.
College of the Atlantic is as well.
Quest University is as well.
And I'm pretty sure I can say that Bennington is as well. Anyone else? What are their preferred ways of being contacted? Anyone have preferences?
This is Eric from Absolutely Not. Once you're in contact with us, texting also becomes available with our admissions counselors.
The contact information is all on the screen. Does anyone have anything different than what's on the screen in terms of contacting you? Let's do it that way. We have a lot of the contact information on the screen, and I'm starting to get lots of questions in here. So I will jump into a few of those. So I think this one is a good one. Let me jump over here. This is important. So going to grad school, attending your college, how do narrative transcripts translate into applying for graduate school? And how do grad schools look at non-traditional undergraduate school? Always the famous question.
Very important question. And so first part of my answer is, don't worry. All of us, Evergreen included, have been around for a while and are known to graduate schools. I think it's safe to say. And so if they receive a transcript from Evergreen, from any of us, they should know how to deal with it. Speaking for Evergreen only for a moment, what we will send to the graduate admissions office is a complete stack of all the narratives that a student has received over the years. And feedback we get from graduate schools is, honestly, it's a little bit of work to read them all, but they tend to appreciate them in the end because it's quite similar to getting a large envelope of recommendation letters. And therefore, they feel they understand and know the student's background and skills better than a single sheet of paper with letters and numbers on it. And we've had students experience acceleration into opportunities in fellowships and research because the graduate admissions office felt much more knowledgeable about them from the very, very beginning.
Anyone else want to jump in and answer that one for their specific college?
I would just echo what Eric said. Our students don't have any trouble getting into graduate school, and they can elect to receive a letter grade along with their narrative evaluation, which gives them a GPA.
I would just add that at COA, we also have narrative evaluations and the option for students to take grades. And if students are planning on going to graduate school, particularly in the sciences, then we encourage them to take a letter grade so that they will have a GPA in addition to those narrative evaluations.
I'd like to add that at Quest, students will receive letter grades unless they elect to take classes pass-fail, and they'll also get a large amount of narrative feedback that's primarily just going to be for them and not necessarily show up on the transcript. But what I'd like to say that I think is probably relevant for all of the schools on this panel is that if you're going to a small university with small class sizes where you're getting to know your professors, that's going to be a great opportunity for you to get letters of recommendations from people who really know you, who know what type of work you're capable of. And that's going to be a great asset to a grad school application. So going to a small university can be a great assistance to getting into grad school.
Ms. Bennington on here, any answers about graduate school? LaShawn?
Sorry, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Sorry, something's going on with my internet. Could you repeat the question about graduate school?
Just with the narrative evaluations, how does it work with graduate school?
Yeah, so we have the option. So we do both narrative and letter grades, so you can opt for either one. But for graduate schools, the way that it'll work is you'll receive your transcript will essentially have an extended narrative form for admissions officers to review. So it's really relying on the narrative. So you can choose to do either or, but there are admissions reps, particularly I don't oversee graduate admissions, but for like if you are applying, if you received your undergrad at Bennington and we're going to apply at Bennington, we review the narrative form, but also we look at things like letters of recommendation. But if you're applying outside to Bennington, there are departments, as everyone can attest to, that are used to seeing narrative forms. So they really take a deep dive into what it is your professors have said about your experiences, but also, you know, if they use interviews, if they use things such as letters of recommendation. So there's a way to kind of holistically review it when you have a narrative-based transcript. I hope that answers your question.
Thanks. We had a quick question for Evergreen and Eric. Housing for freshman students who need a kitchen to accommodate special needs. And I'm going to tag on one more question because we also had a question in general about disability services.
Sure.
So I'll just throw that out to everyone. How do you deal with special needs and allergy-based special needs specifically as well?
Sure. So most first-year students will live in a traditional type of residence hall here. It, of course, is highly recommended, but it is not strictly required that first-year students live on campus. And then if a first-year student had an allergy or some other need that necessitated cooking their own food, they would be housed in one of our apartments then, or one of our suite-type scenarios that has a full kitchen. We have an office here on campus known as Access Services, which will provide a full suite of services to any student that needs an accommodation of any sort, often in partnership with our Quantitative Reasoning Center, aka Math Tutoring, and the Writing Center if they need help in those particular areas. If you make a visit to campus, you will also see a good number of students that are accompanied by their guide dog, comfort dog, support dog, that sort of thing. We're become well equipped to help out those.
Anyone else want to comment on disability services for their colleges?
Prescott has an office in the Learning Commons that provides accommodations and a writing center, math tutoring, and just general academic support for any student that needs it.
I can comment on College of the Atlantic as well. We also have a writing center and tutoring, study skills help, and basically a lot of accommodations are dealt with between the professor and the student directly, but we also have our academic services office that helps students who need accommodations.
Any other comments about disability?
Yeah, I'll mention that for students who need additional support in academics, we have a learning commons and then also office hours, as well as our Dean of Students works with accessibility services that need additional support outside of those supports. And then as far as the living situation and support services, each of our first year students will be in their own room, and there will be both a student assigned residence assistant, resident support, and a staff member living in each of the residents to support students in those capacities.
Any other comments? I don't know if we covered everyone or not. So I'm going to carry on because we still have 30 people here. The questions will be time stamped so people can jump around to see what other questions need to be answered. If you need to go and you are from a college, no hard feelings. If you want to stay, that would be great. And we will see, we still have 30 participants. So I will carry on. There was a question about sports and how are athletics handled on your campus? So whoever wants to jump in.
I can jump in on that one. So there's a couple different capacities that students can get involved in sports. The first is our intramurals. We have strong intramural team sports on campus. So those sports are going to change depending on the students on campus and what they want to play. But usually each year we see a co-ed intramural rugby team, soccer tournaments, indoor volleyball during the rainier months. And then there's also a lot of more individual sports as well. So like I said, people come to Squamish for mountain biking, hiking, and climbing. We do have a bouldering gym on campus. Our campus is located right next to a bunch of the mountain biking trails in Squamish. So those are very popular athletic pursuits, as well as skiing and snowboarding because Whistler is so nearby.
Prescott College has one intercollegiate sport, and it's mountain biking. And similar to Quest, we have students very active in the hiking trails, rock climbing, etc. Every student also has access to the local community college and their pool and fitness and gym facilities.
Anyone else want to give that an answer?
Can you hear me now? This is Eric.
I can hear you.
Evergreen participates in an NAIA athletic conference with some other small colleges here in the Pacific Northwest. We offer men's and women's soccer, men's and women's basketball, volleyball, and then track and field for our students on a competitive intercollegiate basis, and probably a pretty typical full suite of intramural offerings that may also include members of the staff and faculty on the team.
I know that Bennington is having internet trouble. I don't know if anyone else is on here, if I should move to the next question. Any other athletics?
I can speak briefly to COA. I did mention it in my presentation, but can talk a little bit more about athletics at COA. So we don't have are a lot of informal sports and out and recreational activities that happen. We have the most formal team is the Black Flies trail running team. We do have a mascot, even though we don't have sports teams. So we do have the Black Flies trail running team. They have on occasion competed against other institutions. But other than that, a lot of the athletics happen through pickup games and at the YMCA. It's kind of more informal than intramurals, but seems to work for students who are here.
And there was one last question, and it was about future employers and non-traditional college graduates. So how do future employers see someone who graduates from a non-traditional college or your college?
This is a great question. When you look at what employers say they're looking for in college graduates, the three things they always come back to are people who can think critically, reason effectively, and work collaboratively. And at all of our schools, they're going to gain those three skills no matter what they choose to major in. So they're going to be well positioned to go into the workforce and make a difference, and frankly rise quickly in their profession.
So I get the question a lot from prospective students to College of the Atlantic, you know, what do I say, you know, to a future employer when they see that my degree is in human ecology? How do you explain that to people? And what I heard from an alum, I was talking with an alum recently. He currently works for Facebook as a data analyst, and he was talking with me about that. And he said what he has found now that he's doing a lot of hiring and a lot of interviewing people is that if he sees an application with a traditional major on it, like a biology major or something like that, that question has already been answered. That's not a conversation. But when when an employer sees an application with you majored in human ecology, they're going to ask a question, and that question is an opportunity for you to talk more about yourself and about your education. So I think it's kind of the way you frame it and the way you think about it. I also think a lot of the programs here, a lot of the different universities that have presented, there's a lot of flexibility in the way you can talk about your studies as well, and that's a strength. So you can say, you know, I majored in human ecology with a focus on languages and linguistics, or with a focus on psychology, or with a focus on, and you can kind of shape that in the way that makes sense for you and in the way that makes sense for your studies. So I think we haven't really had, I think our grads, like many of the others here, haven't found that to be a barrier in any way. If anything, it's an opportunity to talk more and to speak eloquently about your education.
I'd just like to echo both of those comments and refer back to the slide that had the transferable skills on it that I mentioned during the presentation. Most of these schools are going to, I imagine, are going to be really encouraging those transferable skills that apply to lots of different contexts. And then I also want to highlight that most of these schools have some kind of required or strongly encouraged internship during your academic study, and that will also be a great way for you to know a little bit about what it's like in the workforce and really be able to speak authentically to that when you're in an interview.
So speaking for Evergreen, so we are the place where grades are not an option. Narrative evaluations are the only form of evaluation available to students. So in terms of this question with employment, and it really relates to graduate school applications as well, we do create what we call the cover sheet, which breaks the student learning down into credit equivalencies. How many credits earned in English, how many were earned in history, and that often helps an employer understand in terms they might understand a little bit better exactly what a student has done at Evergreen. In some cases, we will send a full set of narratives to a potential employer. Other times, working with the student, we might send a selection of them, not the whole package. For both graduate applications and employment, if an employer or a graduate school just will not accept those narratives, just can't take those in and process them, and there are some graduate schools that must have a GPA to type into their database, our academic deans and the registrar first will phone and try and coach them through it, and then, if necessary, we'll go through the narratives and assign letter grades to each 16-credit program that a student has completed to satisfy those requirements for a graduate school or an employer.
Anyone else on that particular employment question? So I have a couple more and then we're going to sign off. This is a quickie. Anyone offer dance classes?
We have a faculty member at Quest who teaches in feminism and dance, so that's available. And then there's a dance studio with classes offered by students. So we don't have a full-time dance program, but we do have some extracurricular dance and then a couple dance classes that you would be able to take as part of your academic studies.
Evergreen has a limited offering in dance.
And I would say at COA sounds similar to Quest. We have a faculty member in theater and movement. So she does teach classes that are movement-based, involving dance and other movements. But we do not have a wide variety of classes related to dance. There are some extracurricular dance classes outside of the curriculum that do happen, but curricularly, yeah.
And the same is true of Prescott. A little bit of extracurricular opportunity, but not in the curriculum.
I have a feeling that that was the one question where I wish Bennington did not have to go off and do their thing. Elizabeth, who asked that question, I would contact Bennington about that. That may be the one college that might be able to have a little more for you. I think we're going to do one more, and we're back to graduate school again. Do undergrad sciences, interdisciplinary sciences, line up for the prerequisites for graduate school?
I'll go yes. Our faculty is aware, our academic deans, of what the requirements are. And so students will earn the right credits, the right skills, the lab skills to be prepared to succeed, get into, be admitted, and succeed in graduate school. And we've got lots of stories of arriving at graduate school feeling like they were beyond fully prepared after attending Evergreen.
And yeah, I would say similarly, we have grad students right now in the sciences at Duke, at UC Davis, at Columbia, at Yale. So students go on to do graduate degrees in the sciences at a wide range of different institutions. Students do have to plan ahead. I think if they want to go into the sciences, they're going to be taking a lot of science classes and making sure they have those prerequisites, particularly if they want to go into medical school or do a pre-vet or pre-med track, because we don't have kind of a track here. We have all of the classes, but you have to make sure that you take them. So that's the piece.
I'll mention that it's going to be similar at Quest. If you're interested in going into pre-med, we do offer those courses, but you will have to plan ahead and intentionally take those classes so that you're prepared by the time graduation comes around. And then I'll also mention, just for Quest in particular, that because we have the question-based major, that's going to be similar to the type of thinking that you would be doing in a graduate or PhD program. It's going to be a lot of question-based thinking and project-based learning. So usually our students have a very smooth transition into graduate school, whether that be in the arts, humanities, or sciences. And we have students who go in all those directions.
I'd say at Prescott, we offer a BA and a BS in environmental studies. And if someone were going to go into the hard sciences in grad school, they'd want to pursue the BS.
I think that covers all the schools. I'm going to wrap up because I have a feeling that we could just go on forever. But I want to say thank you so much to the representatives from each college. I want to remind everyone that there's contact information right here in the Q&A slide. And I really encourage people to contact. Don't be afraid to reach out to the admission office. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you everyone for staying past this time. And I hope this was really, really helpful. So I'm going to sign off, and when